I want to put up the main elements of the Manchin proposal. Make Election Day a holiday. Mandate at least 15 days of early voting. Ban partisan gerrymandering and use computer models and require a voter ID. Now, Senator, Manchin took out a lot of the basic Senate plans, S1, the For the People Act, like public financing of congressional elections. Can you go along with the Manchin stripped-down version? And if not, why not?
Well, one, I like Joe Manchin a lot, but we had the largest turnout in the history of the United States, and states are in charge of voting in America. So I don't like the idea of taking the power to redistrict away from state legislators. You're having people move from blue states to red states. Under this proposal, you would have some kind of commission redraw the new districts, and I don't like that. I want states where people are moving to have control over how to allocate new congressional seats. So as much as I like Joe Manchin, the answer would be no. In my view, SR1 is the biggest power grab in the history of the country. It mandates ballot harvesting, no voter ID. It does away with the states being able to redistrict when you have population shifts. It's just a bad idea, and it's a problem that most Republicans are not going to sign up. They're trying to fix a problem most Republicans have a different view of.
Now, Joe Manchin would say, look, a lot of the stuff that you just objected to is not in my bill. His is a stripped-down version, and he doesn't talk about an independent commission. He just says ban partisan gerrymandering, and as you know, the Constitution does provide for federal oversight of state elections. Here's the practical question here. If you if Republicans vote, as it appears you're going to kill the Manchin version of voting rights, you've already, Republicans voted to kill the bipartisan January 6th commission looking into the insurrection at the Capitol. Do you run the risk that Manchin and a couple of other moderate senators will eventually say, look, bipartisanship isn't working, and you know what, we're not going to kill the filibuster, but we're going to reduce the number of votes you need to stop a debate from 60 to 55. Do you run that risk?
I hope not, because I was in Joe Manchin's shoes. I like Joe Manchin. I'm willing to work with him on infrastructure. We're very close on police reform. You haven't talked about police reform, but I think we can get there. I think Tim Scott and Cory Booker and the rest of us are very close to a police reform package that would be bipartisan. But when we had the House and the Senate and the White House under President Trump, I had a bunch of Democrats wanting to sign a letter with me protecting the filibuster. Every one of those Democrats had fled for the hills. So I was beat on every day. Why don't you give in and agree with President Trump to change the rules so we can get the Trump agenda through? I said, no, I don't think it'd be good for the country. Never once did I go to Joe Manchin or any other Democrat and say, if you don't do some of the things I want, I'm going to agree with Trump to change the rules. I'm not going to be extorted here. I'm asking no more of my Democratic colleagues than I ask of myself. It was very unpleasant to be beat on every day by the President of the United States, President Trump, and his allies to try to change the rules in the Senate to have their way. I said no because it's bad for the Senate. I hope these Democrats understand it's bad for the Senate to change the rules, and I don't want to be extorted. I've got to give 2 or 3 things before they will not change the rules. I don't like that at all. I didn't do that to them, and I wish they would not do this to me.
It seems that when Lindsey Graham decided to come on Fox News, he didn't consider that Chris Wallace might actually push back. Now, right off the bat, Graham suggests that he doesn't agree with S1, the For the People Act, because the 2020 election was the highest turnout election we had. But this is such bizarre circular logic because the issues being addressed by S1 have to do with the Republican response to the 2020 election. And that response includes a raft of voter suppression tactics being employed with nearly 389 bills in 48 states. That is what S1 addresses. Yes, the 2020 election was the highest turnout election, and what followed was an effort by Lindsey Graham's own party to ensure that the next election isn't a high turnout election. Republicans are limiting drop boxes, they're shortening early voting periods, they're banning curbside voting, they're limiting vote by mail, and worst of all, they're continuing their efforts to gerrymander Republican-led states so that the GOP can legislate themselves into the majority in the House. So Lindsey Graham presenting S1 as an antidote to the 2020 election is a nice little story he conjured up, but it's not based in reality. It is a convenient fairy tale that Republicans are telling themselves themselves to justify blocking legislation that only seeks to make elections fair in this country. Lindsey Graham might be fooling his little corner of the universe that mainlines Fox News, but the rest of us know that he's arguing a straw man, and he's doing it shamelessly. Graham even suggests that the power to redraw congressional districts, which, again, is an antidote to flagrant partisan gerrymandering, would be taken away from the states and handed to some unnamed independent redistricting commissions. But those redistricting commissions are created within the states. This isn't Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama in a smoky room in Washington, D.C. drawing Wisconsin's maps. These commissions are usually composed of an equal number of Republicans and Democrats in each state, and they usually need approval from at least a certain number of people from both parties for maps to get approved. So when Graham complains that he doesn't want states to lose the ability to draw their own maps, he is willfully misrepresenting the fact that independent commissions do allow the states to redraw their own maps. They just eliminate the naked partisanship that Graham knows his party needs in order to win. But here's where Graham goes off the rails. He calls S1 the biggest power grab in the history of the country, which doesn't mean anything. It's just a platitude with zero proof to back it up. He says that it mandates ballot harvesting. Now, first of all, it doesn't mandate it, it would allow it. And I know Republicans rely on the fact that this is a scary term. This simply means that someone can collect a ballot on someone's behalf and submit it. If you're elderly, if you're not mobile, if you're sick, immunocompromised, or even out of town, it's not some scary subversion of an election to have your friend or caretaker submit your completed ballot for you. I literally did it for a friend in the last election. It is a normal practice and a legal one in a number of states already. Consider too that S1 prevents payment for ballot collections based on the number of ballot returns, meaning that there's no financial incentive to do this. It's simply a tool to make your life easier when it comes time to voting. He says it does away with voter ID. Again, this is misleading. It doesn't do away with voter ID, but it expands the options that a voter can use if they don't have what's known as strict ID documents, like a driver's license, for example. It would permit individuals to present an election official a sworn written statement under penalty of perjury attesting to the individual's identity and that they're eligible to vote, which, by the way, is already a practice used in a number of states and is rarely even employed. But the point is that for those who don't have an ID, possibly because it costs money to buy one and is therefore a financial barrier to being able to cast a ballot, there's still an avenue for them to be able to exercise their constitutional right to vote. And finally, he repeats this lie that states won't be able to draw their own districts, which again, they can, but they'll do so in a nonpartisan manner instead of the egregiously partisan manner that they're using right now. But again, none of these are meant to be presented in good faith. This is only intended to fearmonger as a means to trick people into thinking that a bill protecting voters is somehow hurting them. But finally, here's the single most shameless part of all of this. When Chris Wallace asks Lindsey Graham if the Republicans' constant opposition to everything, from the January 6th Commission to the For the People Act, increases the risk of Manchin changing his stance on the filibuster, when Graham absolves himself and his party by claiming that they're close on police reform, and so somehow they're off the hook for having opposed everything else. If your party can't bring itself to support a bipartisan commission to investigate an attack on your own colleagues' lives, then I'm sorry, but being close on a police reform bill doesn't exactly make you a paragon of good governance. He even suggests that when Republicans were in the majority, they kept the filibuster. Only, think about this for a second. What two things do Republicans care about more than anything? Tax cuts for millionaires and confirming judges. And for both of those, they did eliminate the filibuster. They only need a simple majority for both of those to pass. And so they passed the 2017 tax cut with a simple majority, and Republicans confirmed a record number of judges with only a simple majority. So when Graham pats himself on the back for keeping the filibuster, just ask how many votes Kavanaugh and Gorsuch and Amy Coney Barrett needed for confirmation. The fact is that from one end of this interview to the next, Lindsey Graham lied, shamelessly and easily, because he knows that the only way to defend the Republicans' position here is to flagrantly misrepresent the facts. If Republicans were able to win elections on the merits, they would tout their agenda. But because their agenda is woefully unpopular, because they only stand for tax cuts for millionaires and billionaires, curbing women's reproductive rights, denying action on climate change, and stopping Americans from voting, their only option is to shrink the electorate enough so that they might have a chance. This isn't a party committed to democracy, it's a party intent on subverting it. And Lindsey Graham is positioning himself front and center as one of the GOP's principal architects. If you enjoyed that video, click on the subscribe link right here on this screen to join the more than 1 million people who've already subscribed to my channel. To donate to my Don't Be a Mitch Fund, where I'm raising money for a whole raft of different voter outreach and voter registration groups in the closest states ahead of midterms in 2022, including Georgia, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, North Carolina, and Texas, you can find that link on this screen as well. Thanks for watching.